double weapon blade or a single weapon blade in the early part of the game. We do see a Baron being banned out for the side of Impunity. Just do not want to face Baron anymore.
Yeah, because giving Baron allows that late game comeback. So it seems that Team Impunity really understand how Brenchong draft, because they took down two of their best heroes, which is Celeste and Baron. So now Team Brenchong has to really pull out their second ace of the under their sleeves, and we will see what kind of heroes they can pull out at this point of time. I would really like the pick of Vox right now, because a Vox and a Lyra is really a good pick. You have that constant kiting around Vox and that sustainability, but a Kestrel works as well. A lot of people would pick second pick as a Kestrel because of that flexibility Kestrel allows. He allows it to be a weapon laner or a CP jungler. So this allows Brenchong to have a more open draft compared to a more closed draft.
Definitely. I mean, it is kind of a question mark on a box for that Castro at least. Whether or not it will be played in lane, I think Castro will be played in lane though, because of the lane presence that Castro provides. If Brenchong is so used to being Baron, playing Baron, then Castro provides similar lane pressure as well. And of course, on top of that, you have the sustain coming out from Lara. So I don't think, but then we do see a Vox being picked up on the side of Impunity. The problem is that Vox can out-sustain the Castro in lane by the early poison shift. And of course, you know, we do see Samuel as well being picked up just to round out the comp on the side of Impunity. If they do go for the Crystal Castro must really watch out when Samuel hits that level 2.
Yeah, and giving Samuel out, I'm actually quite surprised by tonight's game that nobody actually immediately take up that Samuel, because we have been seeing so many Samuel games, and the amount of pressure that Samuel provides, even from the early game up to the late game, is immense. This hero is such a valuable pick. It's such a well-rounded hero pick that it allows to give the team advantage at the early game, and it's still a threat at the late game. So having this composition at the team of Impunity side, they are looking really, really solid. You have that sustain from Grace, that Vox is a monster by itself, and Samuel has his own passive ability, if I'm not mistaken, Corrupted Genius,
Genius,
which allows him to sustain as well at the early game. So you're going to see a very aggressive play coming up from Impunity again, and we'll see what we will see what Brenchong will pick for the last pick, which I'm informed it's the Sky, if I'm not. Right.
So Sync 1 is really comfortable on this Sky as well. I mean, the side in the first game as well, we do see a Sky being banned out from the side of Impunity. I think it is in respect to Sync 1's Sky. So we will see Sync 1 on this Sky, and of course to round out the comp of Castro and Lara. I mean, Sky does well into Samuel, because you do force Samuel out of Drifting Dark if you lock onto him and then Suri strike away from the direction of the Drifting Dark. So, you know, honestly, any closing thoughts for the team comp? Because honestly, although you say you like the team comp coming outside of Impunity, but otherwise I find both of these team comps, both of these teams and what they've drafted, rather even overall. Granted, Castro is a monster in the late game, and then of course you have Vox, who has just stopped at triple a weapon, and that's all that Vox would do. But then, of course, we cannot deny and discount the fact that Grace is a monster with the healing in when she hits a level 12 as well.
Yeah, and it fits, in my opinion, the last pick Sky. It fits Brenchong a lot, because Brenchong likes to play from the back foot, if we've been discussing from the previous games. So with this composition, they can safely stay at the back line, just reacting to whatever Impunity has. And the problem is, if Impunity overextend, Brenchong can really punish all of this overextension. So we'll see, it comes down to execution, but it's really important to take note of all the jungle engagement at the early first 5 minutes, because if Sing C1 manages to hold down the Samuel and take control of the jungle, then it's pretty much Brenchong's game to push down the towers, to mow down the game. But however, if Samuel manages to control the jungle, then Sing C1 will have a hard time getting his items up and to be a threat throughout the game.
Definitely, I must agree with you. I mean, but we saw how Impunity plays, and Impunity plays really, really very aggressively, especially paired up with a level 2 power spike Samuel. And of course, on top of that, we have Benediction constantly coming up from this Grace to just bug Sync1 and Gang out of their own jungle. So I'm quite excited to come into this game and of course, and see how this will play out. But before all of that excitement from me, I would like to introduce to all of the viewers, I request a duo who will be talking alongside Rubber Monkey for this game. How are you doing, buddy?
Hello, hello. Good to be back into this matchup. Apologies if I was not able to join on the previous one due to technical difficulties, but I'm sure you did a great job as I was listening along to the two of you. And by the sounds of it, the last match definitely went in Impunity's favor, and there wasn't too much Brenchong could do. But I heard Luxura saying that now we're looking at maybe a bit more of a balanced draft coming into this one. And would you agree with that statement, Rubber Monkey?
Yeah, I do agree with that statement. Both of the composition has their play style to play on. You're looking at the team of Impunity, which is a Fox, Grace, and Samuel. Expect a lot of pressure coming up from Grace and Samuel to push down and obtain that advantage. And on the side of Brenchong, you see a Lyra, Castro, and Sky, which is able to actually punish those aggression if they are able to play it right.
And we see Grace being very aggressive at the start. Might get caught out, however, but it's going to be up to get out there safely. And luckily, no target lock going down onto her. You'd think with the Lyra, the slows are going to help out with that. And even just helping out Mr. Jim get those glimmer shots on target. And it's going to be Impunity, the first ones to try go for this middle triant. And Brenchong kind of backing off. Both teams actually decide to back off in the end there. Yeah, and no one's going to go for it. Or perhaps, no, Cordova just going to back in front of it. So you can see these teams are respecting each other, at least, and being a bit more cautious. And I think for the side of Impunity, and you mentioned it, they have a very good engage there. But I don't see why they didn't play that mid triant a bit more aggressively and just try to get a bit of advantage in the jungle.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, that although, and as you said, it's the respect between team, but the problem is that whoever obtained that first blood or control of the jungle basically wins the game, because that determines how much control you have. It's either a Sky mowing down the entire team of Team Impunity, or the Samuel applying so much pressure that Team Brenchong is going to suffer. So both team understanding their composition and just waiting for that power spike and just waiting for that perfect opportunity, not taking any risk, because they don't want to take this either to a third game.
I think it went over to Sky. I couldn't quite catch that. It looks like Cordova has it, and they are able to pick up the first blood as well onto Samuel there. So you can see the triple crystal bit. He didn't even opt out for the boots. He's now going to pick up the boots, actually picking up travel boots at this stage. It's going to help with the mobility there. And I always think, I wonder what you have to say on this as a pro player, but going back on your first back, it's always a good idea to pick up your first boots. But in that situation, I think for Samuel, he has the mobility while in that drifting dark that he didn't need it at that point and instead opted out for the crystal bit. But do you think for most situations it is correct to say it's a good idea to go for those boots on your first back?
I think it comes down to your comfort of your play, because if you're a really aggressive player and you just want, that you can, oh wait, an engagement's coming on there first.
It looks like Martian gonna have to use the bright bulwark to get on there, and there's gonna be drifting dark, but isn't used to its full potential because Mr. Jim actually able to hold down the fort with a few glimmer shots coming out, and a lot of damage coming out from both teams. But I think the sustain from the Lyra there is gonna help out the side of Brenchon's, and they're gonna just continue to defend this turret fairly well. But Impunity holding the aggression as you expected.
Yeah, and looking from that, we can actually see that although Brenchong has a sustain, we have some technical issue there, but as I was saying, that even though Brenchong has a sustain, Samuel provides so much pressure that it just pushes your lane backwards, and that's something that Brenchong is going to have on and on and on towards this game. So they're gonna have to see how they're gonna handle this, and let's see what they're gonna do. But currently, we have a technical issue so far, and it's going on, and we'll see how these players are going to play out this game.
And I guess it really comes down, you said the advantage so far in favor of Impunity after getting that first blood, but in terms of gold, there isn't really too much difference as it's only 9.9k over to the 9.7, and I think it's so far what we can determine from these two teams is that pressure you were talking about by Impunity, that they're being able to apply to this lane, and how that's going to transition into the mid game. Because if they manage to continue to have control over this, and they're the ones kind of dictating the way these fights go, I think they're going to have a very good time for objective control, such as when Goldmine comes up, and just being able to force Brenchong back to base more often in the way that they're going to be able to take the first turret, I imagine. But in saying that, they do have that Lyra there, who's trying their best with the Imperial Sigil. I just don't think it's enough. You said this Samuel is, you need to be cautious of him because the damage he's putting out this stage is already immense. It looks like Martian might get caught out by Quartervore and Def Q there. They do go down, and there's no return kill following up with that, so that's another kill going over to the side of Impunity. They need to be careful here because Cincy1 actually finding themselves out with Blue City. Gonna drop the death from above, but it's not gonna be a fight you can win. You have to back off from that. Cincy1 going to be low and leaving Bren in the 1v3 situation up in lane. This could be bad, and this could be that first turret that we were talking about going over to Impunity.
Yeah, and Team Impunity has been doing this so consistently that they know how to travel as a unit and to actually just push down the towers within time. They know their objectives, and this is how Team Impunity stays as a top team. They know how to travel together. They know how much pressure they can do, because naturally, if you have a team with Lyra as your roamer, you know that you can sustain. But because of the 3-man engagement and the 3-man pressure, that sustain wasn't enough. So Team Impunity knowing their composition really well, and props to them.
And this is what we talked about in the fight between Impunity and Infamous, that why it's so close, because both teams just had that experience there. Brenchong's also having team members from the Pro Series as well. They have experience with them, but it really is on a different level, and you talked about this in terms of pressure, and I think for you, you could understand that quite well when going up against teams like Impunity and Infamous, because they are the top dogs of SEA as it stands, and we're going to see if they can prove that here in this team fight, as we see Quartervore going in on that Grace and Blue City, following up with the Drifting Dark, the Empowered Malice and Verdicts, and is just looking for a kill here on Cincy1. There's going to be the Fountain used on the side of Brenchong, should be able to keep them alive, but can they return the damage? It's not enough to just stay alive at this point, because Impunity will push on through. There's a one-shot, one-kill going on to Quartervore. Quartervore doesn't quite have that level 6 yet, so isn't going to have the Divine Intervention to help with the healing. And there's going to be the trade kill. DefQ picking up the Lyra, and Sky picking up the Samuel. And Cincy1 doing a lot of work on this Sky at the moment, picking up the double, gets the target lock onto Quartervore. Death from above lands, but it gets blocked out, and they're going to look for the triple, but Quartervore a bit too tanky right now, and it doesn't look like they're going to find it. But Cincy1 with the turnaround, that Frostburn really helping out on the Sky. Always a good pickup, Sky, and I'm sure you know or you've heard that is previous to the match that I would cheer for the team that has the Sky, being a Sky main. But yeah, looking at this, the Frostburn's going to help them in terms of helping Kestrel land those Glimmer shots as well, and just slowing down and being able to jump onto those enemies overall. And that's why it's a good pickup. I used to go for something like a Shadow Glass because thinking more damage, but really the Frostburn is must do on Sky for most cases.
Yeah, but I think it's also situational, because it's okay to go for a Shadow Glass for most of the team, for most of the Sky games as well. But looking at the side of Brenchong, you don't have any utility or tools or skills to actually pin down the heroes except Sky's Frostburn damage, and there's an engagement going on first. We go to that.
Like a bit of trade here, because Blue City now out of that Drifting Dark, not going to be able to do as much damage, but it's going to be the wait for him, forcing Mr. Jim to back. It looks like Impunity just continuing to hold this pressure in lane, and they might even be able to take another turret for, and you talked about before, they know how to move as a unit, and they know how to get objectives from that kills. And it looks like they might have overstepped that boundaries, not quite respecting that Sky, and Sky just showing them once again, now 3-0, and putting a 3-3 kill match. And
man,
you can see how Impunity, they have the pressure. They just need to be careful, because even though they've got the damage, they don't exactly have much defense on them. There's a Kinetic Shield coming out on DefQ, as well as some light armor, but it's not going to be enough. There's going to be Oblivion going down, and it gets blocked. And Brenchong really showing why they're in this third place matchup and fighting for it, because they really, in the match before, at least what I heard, between Impunity and Brenchong, had a tough time. It's good to see them kind of, you said they need to regroup themselves together, and it looks like they've done that a bit. But I'm just waiting to see whether Impunity are going to make this turn into another snowball match, as they have taken the first turret with no real pressure being put on their own.
Yeah, and maybe this is the strategy that they are going on, because from the previous game, Sync C1 was on that Taka, and the Taka's job was to engage in, but it was quite difficult to engage on an aggressive composition from the previous game. But picking up a Sky right now, you can punish that aggression, which Sync C1 is just doing so well. And on the side of Team Impunity, I guess they have to currently really respect Team Brenchong, because yes, they're putting a lot of pressure, yes, they're pushing down the towers, but they're actually not respecting how much a Sky can actually put down the damage onto them. So after that 2 deaths, I'm sure that they are not going to give Sky any more opportunity to engage upon on them as well.
And we're being told by Luxura that's supposed to be Sync 1, so we'll refer to the Sky as that from now on, as we see the engage of Impunity into Brenchong, and that Divine Intervention just helping DefQ get in there. But DefQ once again overstepping his bounds, does get caught out by the Sky. Will Samuel be able to find the kills that he needs, though, as Margin is on the run? There's the Imperial Sigil. Will it be enough to get them out there? Frostburn is on that Samuel, and it might be enough to slow him down, and they're able to find the kill. They're not going to get Sky and not the ace, but you can see that this Sky has got no defense. They actually sold their boots for a second there accidentally, which I was thinking would be funny if they were just going to go all in Shadow, but you still need that mobility on Sky, and that's what makes Sky work so well, because it is built into her kit quite a bit, the mobility. And I think that Box needs to be a bit more cautious and leave it up to Samuel to be in the front line a bit more, because Samuel has that sustain in his kit, as well as having that Eve of Harvest now picked up. So maybe just playing it a bit more cautiously and a bit more cleanly from the side of Impunity. Otherwise, Brenchong might be able to bring this one back, as we see Sync 1 on the other side of the wall. Does use there from above, but is getting caught out by Blue City with a few of those Malice and Verdict shots. But I think they'll be fine for the moment.
Yeah, and as the game goes on into the later game, we can see that Brenchong is getting stronger and stronger by the minute, because these heroes really grow based off their items, and 6C1 is becoming much of a threat to Team Impunity.
However, Lyra going low here, does use the fountain early. There's the wait for it, but they're able to get the portal through just in time. They're going to fight around the Crystal Sentry. It's going to be Sky first of all this time, but can Martian do anything to get the kill onto their FQ? And Mr. Jim is there on the other side, but there's going to be the Divine Intervention coming down, but it doesn't matter, because Mr. Jim is outputting the damage. They picked up the Samuel without me even noticing before that, because those are the first 3 kills going on to Mr. Jin. And you just talked about Brenchong at this point. They are getting stronger and stronger. I'm just happy to see that Brenchong, having done what a lot of teams do when they start to play too passive and they back down and start to build a lot of defense. Of course, defense is necessary, but when you're trying to transition into this mid-game, it is about who really takes control of it, and it's good to see them not backing down on the offensive items yet. And I think that's going to help them out a lot, and it can show in the confidence of play that Brenchong is doing right now. That's just amazing positioning by Mr. Jim, as well as seeing the double tyrants already built up. So we're now going to see another engage go down, and this looks a lot more in favor of Impunity, and they're grouped together fairly so. The Crystal Sentry is still up, but they're going to use the wait for it to manage to kill that Lyra and lock her down. And Kestrel was left unchecked again, able to pick up a kill onto DefQ, and since he wants still fairly healthy, there's going to be the one-shot one kill onto Quartervore. Maybe not the target you're looking for, but Sync 1 is still up and ready to fight. I wonder if Blue Sea is going to take this one. They had the man advantage. They need to be careful. Divine Intervention is up, and Sync C1 is going to fall for the trap, however. but it looks like he almost got Quarterbar. There's going to be Divine Intervention used on Blue City, and it's going to be enough for Impunity to take that fight.
But lucky for Brenchong, that is not an ace. So, because if that was an ace, they can transition into the gold mine and they as well taken down the sentry. So, it wasn't such a bad trade for Brenchong. But we can see from all of this engagement that Impunity is not taking the full control of this team fight anymore. Brenchong has all the utility and the tools enough to take over any engagement, and they are confident enough to take on Impunity on a hit-on 3-on-3 engagement. But however, Lyra's getting caught up again.
We see Martian going low, so low, gets taken out, but there's going to be the response kill coming out by Mr. Jim onto that box once again. And they're trying to find Blue City, who's so low right now, but this could be turned around in an instant. You are dealing with a Samuel, and there's the Fountain, but since he wasn't able to find an amazing forward barrage onto them and get the kill, they're looking for the ace. Since he won trying to chase there, using the minions to target lock onto and so strike around, but it's not going to be enough. And Mr. Jim actually moving on to the Kraken right now, which isn't a bad idea. Mr. Jim definitely has the damage, but do they have the defense between the two of them? We'll just have to find out. There is the Kraken,
definitely getting the Kraken.
It looks like they're going to get this without contest. Yeah. Quarterboard didn't flare it out, but just a bit too late.
Now, but here's the interesting part about this match, that Margin is always getting caught out from Team Impunity. However, Brenchong always managed to seize that opportunity and turn it around. So I'm not sure whether it's a bait or it was just an honest mistake, and they were able to capitalize and to just regroup and to understand and capitalize on that mistake. So it's quite interesting to see that happening.
Now we'll be able to see the team of Brenchong engage as a whole team, and maybe having that man advantage will help out. But there's the wait for it, there's the dive in from the Grace, and they're going to use Arcane Passage to get out there. But Mr. Jim in a bad position, and this is looking dire. But Mr. Jim somehow staying alive through all of that, gets the double kill, and it's going to be Court of War.
Wow.
Finally picking up the Kestrel, but meanwhile, since he won, able to just dance around and finish that off for the ace. Mr. Jim being massive this game and just showing us how to really play that Weapon Power Kestrel. And I thought Weapon Power Kestrel was dead, but I guess it's definitely changed in the meta to be a lot more based around those glimmer shots and not so much on building your stacks up, as we can see in the build by Mr. Jim. They got that Sorrow Blade, they got the double Tyrants, and then they've got the Bone Sword just to help shred through the armor if there's any, which we can see a Metal Jacket on Court of War. And not much else on the jungler and carry for the side of Impunity. So do you think they need to start responding to that?
Yeah, I guess right now what they're going to do is they're going to pay some respect to Castro right now, because if they're not going to build any of the defense, they're just going to get mowed down by the glimmer shots. As we can see, it was like 500 to 600 damage each shot, and the problem here is that Vox requires some time to actually build up his damage, but Castro already has that instant damage. So if you're going to do an one-to-one exchange, Castro will always come up on top, and you have that sustain from Lyra as well. So it's really Impunity just having to give that respect, and I do hope that Vox would build a better jacket, but however he's going for that double reflex just to negate the Atlas.
One shot, one kill, just going to go out for, I guess, see if you can get anything with it. It's a 40-second cooldown, and on Weapon Power Kestrel, you don't need it as much. Of course, you can use it to get anyone that's running away, but I think they're just going to take that chance. I'm not too sure why they did that, but the fight is going to break out here with Court of Wood being the one to jump in first. Once again, Lyra getting caught out. You did mention that before. There's the wait for it going on to Mr. Jim this time, but only for a second. And Sky in a bad position right now. Does need to find the safety of the team. And there's going to be Court of War with a massive jump over the wall onto Mr. Jim, but no re-engage from that because the Crystal Sentry is currently helping out with side of Brenchong. And it looks like Lyra might get caught out here. Mr. Jim is still around, and I'm wondering if Blue City has the damage. But you see, yeah, Samuel able to pick up the kill onto Lyra, and now Quarterboard actually doing quite a bit of work onto Mr. Jim, opening up an area of opportunity for DefQ to get Q, and they're now going to move on to Sync 1, and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to make it out alive, but a very close one because they did manage to take down the Grace, and you can see DefQ and Blue City at half health, but Impunity really starting to push back here. As they realized they were actually, at this point, you look objectively wise, they have 2 turrets left to before on the side of Brenchong, and they were kind of realizing we're starting to slip here, we need to get it together, and they just pushed through with a team fight. I think catching out Majin once again, which you have to wonder if it is the bait tactic, or if Majin simply is just having a trouble getting caught out, because they do have a good engaged team on the side of Impunity, so it is tough. 1 shot, 1 kill, so close to DefQ. Come on, Lyra. If Majin was there with the steal, I was wondering where the Imperial Sigil was. I believe it is used as a speed boost to get there. So now Brenchong have to deal with this Kraken, and we know how good Impunity are at shutting out these games with Kraken, so we're going to have to see how they respond to it.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be so worried so much about Brenchong because they work best kiting backwards, and with the Kraken in such of a manner of moving down the lane, it's just working on the advantage of Brenchong.
We see that Grace diving in once again. Mr. Jim pretty low on the backline in Sync 1 following suit with that. They have to back off from that initial turret and go back to base to heal up, while Majin trying to stay around and hold before. Kraken already fairly low. I think this won't be a game ender right now, but if the Ace were to go over to Impunity, it might end up that way. So Brenchong still need to play this one safely, and so do Impunity, as they decide to back out of this current fight. But Majin going in with the follow, using the boots there, using the Bright Bulwark to lock them down for a second, and since you Sync 1 trying to get those Frostburn, I guess just get the Frostburn damage off with the 4 barrage, but they're not going to be able to find a kill just yet. You can see Impunity haven't fully disengaged from this fight, and it looks like they're making that decision now, but they were ready to have some kind of counterplay, and it shows that they are confident where they are. We're 21 minutes in, and if you look at the builds, a lot of damage items coming out from both teams here. What I'm wondering though is the amount of defense on DefQ. Do you think that is suitable because of the glimmer shots coming out from Kestrel?
I think from the previous engagement, we can see that what DefQ is actually trying to do is not to go on to Kestrel, but actually to catch out Sync C1, because it's all about dodging that forward barrage and that Suri strike as well. And a hero like Vox does that pretty well. So he's probably getting a lot of reflex blocks to block out the Atlas. His boots is on tier 3 right now, and his objective is to take down Sync C1, because if he's going to trade with Kestrel, I don't think he can do it.
Quarterwall once again jumping onto that Kestrel. They need to be careful to not walk into one of those active camos, because that could end up being the game changer for the side of Brenchong. But you see Quarterwall being very good before jumping in, always putting down these flares, and there's going to be the 1 shot 1 kill once again. I believe not landing. There's no stacks on that Kestrel just yet, and Impunity actually on the back foot for a lot of these fights in terms of they're not getting anywhere, and Brenchong able to just disengage nicely and use that Lyra to stay so sustained.
Yeah, and as the time goes by, like I said, that you're just giving Brenchong more and more tools and utility to get stronger to defeat you, and there's an engagement going on right now.
The death from above was used, but not able to stun anyone out, just slowing them down. And you see Quartervoy using that divine intervention on himself. There's no echo on the Grace, however, but that's only on a 20-second cooldown. So if they wait for a fight, they would have it up just again. But there's going to be the Vox engaging onto Sync 1, as you mentioned before. And he's going to run into the death from above. He gets stunned up for a second, but Martian is nearby to try lock him down. He goes in with the Arcane Passage, followed by the... It's happening too fast as Vox is just turning this one around. The Bright Bulwark is the word I was looking for Impunity. I thought this was really going to be a Brenchong fight, and I think that's why I was so stunned there. And speaking of stunned, it's going to be Quartervore for just a second, but Impunity now going to turn their attention to the Kraken. Unless there's a steal, this one might be the game ender, however.
Yeah, okay. So we were talking throughout the game that Brenchong does so well kiting backwards, but what happened there is Majid went in with a portal and forced Castro and Sky to go in the portal as well, and that turned out so bad. That was definitely the wrong decision for the team Brenchong, because it allows more distance towards the Vox, and Vox finally can close that gap between Sky and just take down whoever is close by to him. So a mistake there for Majid, and I really do hope, and like you said, Impunity takes Kraken push really well. So we have to see that what Brenchong can put up, and can they defend these final 2 turrets, because they do have the tools and utility to take down Kraken really fast, but it's all about not getting caught at this last engagement.
And I think Brenchong might need to push out their base a bit to at least meet Kraken before it gets all the way in. And it's going to be up to Impunity to really kind of force them back towards their turrets before getting any damage down onto that Kraken, because you know how tough these situations can be once that Kraken is in the base with all 3 members of the enemy team. And it's just a lot to focus on and a lot to think about. We see Mr. Jim kind of up in the front lines here, putting down a lot of damage with those glimmer shots, and Def Q is going low. There's going to be the Oblivion, but it doesn't land onto anyone. Meanwhile, Kraken is still fairly healthy. They're looking for the kill onto Def Q here, and Sky's going to jump in. Will find it. They could just turn around and focus Kraken right now, but they're making sure Impunity is out of their base for the meantime. They're probably going to lose a turret here, but you said they had the damage to defend. They should be able to protect this last one.
Yep, and a very nice gameplay decision by Mr. Jim. Not because usually players would just stand in between tower feeling really secure over there, but what he did was he was distracting 3 of the Team Impunity's hero from above the tower. So that was a really good decision to distract and to actually force Team Impunity to try to make an engagement which they did not which they weren't successful with, and they will manage to defend the Kraken because of that mistake.
And we now see another opportunity for the side of Brenchong to bring this one back. It's such a close game. If they lose this one, it is a definite 3rd place for Impunity. But if they're able to win, then they get that chance at a 3rd match. How do you think they should go about this one, as long as Impunity don't jump on them there? And I'll hand the question off to you.
Yeah, so looking at this situation, the thing is that Brenchong don't want to repeat their mistake where they jump into Team Impunity and they just get mowed down by Vox. But the problem is that Team Impunity, you should know that Team Impunity is the team that they like to aggress. So they should take this opportunity to take upon that aggression and give it to their advantage, like what Team Impunity is doing right now.
There's the 1-shot, 1-kill going in. Kestrel actually invisible at the time. They might be able to lead them into one of these active camos, but look at Blue City taking so much damage on the backline. There's going to be Fountain popped on the side of Impunity. Martian going in with that Bright Bulwark once again, followed through the Arcane Passage and trying to get onto Def Q. There's going to be Def from above landing, massive by Sync 1. And meanwhile, Blue City still up on the backline, fighting out with Mr. Jim. It's 2 separate fights going around, but Mr. Jim just takes a second to turn around and help out secure that kill onto Vox. They're now looking, a bit of miscommunication there between Margin and Mr. Jim, as they were almost able to catch out Blue City. Looks like Lyra has the damage on their own. Meanwhile, Sky taking out Cordova on that Grace, and they're able to get the kill. They could go for Kraken, but it looks like they're just going to end the game here with 35 seconds left on Def Q. They have 2 turrets to push through. I believe they can do it right now, and this turret is basically gone already.
Yeah,
so Brenchong with that comeback, and I asked you the question, what did they have to do? And you said not jump in like that, and they didn't. They played around the fight and very well, and I think they were able to split apart the team of Impunity, and that's what led to the success there.
Yeah, so I guess to really just put it out there that Brenchong has what it takes to take on the top tier team. The problem is that Impunity has to realize and to actually not undermine that Brenchong is like lower in mechanical skills, and to really respect what Brenchong can bring to the table, because we can see a lot of early mistakes that allow Brenchongs to have a small gap of breather and allow them to get their items, and led to this late game where Sky is just unbeatable. He's just able to just go around, and Mr. Jim just laying down those glimmer shot and laying down so much damage. And Brenchong should know that their best strategy is to just really just play back that kite hero, because you know Impunity is going to be aggressive.